Oh, hey y'all, Fat Man Outdoors. Hey, if you liked the video, click that like button and click subscribe so that you'll get notifications whenever we post new content. Appreciate you watching. This is the Fat Man. I'm gone. Hey y'all, Fat Man Outdoors. I want to talk to you today about something. It's an important piece of your hunting and shooting equipment, and most of the time nobody ever gives it a second thought. That's your scope mounts. You can buy cheap scope mounts, and when you buy cheap scope mounts, you get cheap scope mounts. You can buy really good scope mounts. Right now there's a scope mount on the market it's a detachable scope mount that is called Zero Delta. They're a little expensive, but if you get one, you're going to like it. I've checked them out, and I've tested them on other people's guns. That's the next thing on my list. I'm going to get one. They go back to zero really good. So if you've got a rifle, say like an AR, that sometimes you'll shoot a red dot on it, or when you're out plinking, and then maybe you want to night hunt with it, and you don't want to have to sight your night vision scope in every time you change it. Well, you can use this Zero Delta mount, and as long as you put it back in the same slots on your pick rail on the rifle, when you put it back on and tighten it down, it's in exactly the same spot it was. They hold zero really well. They're probably the best on the market that I've ever seen. What I wanted to show you today was just some standard mounts, some kind of different mounts that you may not know that were even out there, and also show you some ways that mounts can be modified to be used to do different things with. What I'm going to start off with is what's called a 3-yoke set. Okay, now this set right here, this such a standard 30mm ring. Okay, and there's 2 of them, and then it also comes with this big giant crazy looking thing. What this is pretty neat. If you're an IR hunter, or if you use big lights, hog hunting or something to that effect, you can use one of these in the back and then use this one in the front, and it actually has a pick rail on both sides where you can mount a light or a laser or a flashlight or IR light, whichever one that you need to use. And it makes it really good because it's very modular. It uses a Picatinny rail, which is a modular platform to begin with, but then you use this and it actually makes it even more modular, because you've got something that the scope can be on, and accessories that you need for your scope. If you have an IR scope and you use an IR light, of course, to give you a better night picture, then you've got something that's mounted right with it, and you ain't got to mount up 2 different items on your gun when you get ready to go out. You just stick this one on there and you're ready to go. And these are quick release. It's got the thumb knobs instead of the tighten down with Allen wrench. And most of the time, if you see scope mounts that has these thumb knobs, if you'll mark on your Picatinny rail or visually memorize it or write it down somewhere which number you had these set in your Picatinny rail. That's why most times if you buy good Picatinny rails, you look, they'll have numbers on them, so that you can make note of that, and then when you put them back and tighten it back up, it'll pretty much still be right on zero. Now again, not all of them are created equal when it goes to staying zero. Zero Delta is the road you need to take if that's what you're looking for. But now that's what this is what's called a 3-yoke set, and it's a very modular set. It was this whole kind of deal was designed around folks that night hunted, because when you night hunt, you use a lot of accessories, and this make it a little bit easier. We can keep it all kind of in one unit together. Okay, now there's also, this is a accessory mount, just a single accessory mount. You can put a light or a laser or something like that in it, and it's actually M-lock. It doesn't go on like standard Allen wrench set going on your pick rail. It's made for M-lock, and a lot of rifles now come with just M-lock slots to put accessories. Some come with Picatinny and M-lock. I actually have a Daniel's Defense AR that has the M-lock and the regular Picatinny rail are on the same rifle, so you can use this stuff. But the cool thing about this is that if you have a rifle that has the M-lock that's down the sides, and then a lot of times they have a Picatinny rail on the top and the bottom, well, you can use this on the side and mount a laser or a flashlight or IR light, whatever you're going to put on there, and it'll stay. You can put it far forward. It's a small mount, as you can see, not very big, but it's a different kind of mount, so it's a different way it mounts. Now here is a set of mounts. These are pretty stock standard. These are just a half-inch riser mount. You can notice that there's a space right here that sets the ring that the scope or optic's going to be in. It raises it up by about a half an inch. You can kind of use it as to see your iron sights, but for the most part, these half-inch risers, they're not going to give you accessibility to be able to use your iron sights normally. But what it will do is, there's a lot of rifles out that's the rear sight's way back on the rifle, and it causes a problem when you go to mount your scope, that your scope's going to hit on that front sight. And you may not want to take the front sight off, because say like if you got a older rifle, the front sight's got some value to it, say one of the older model 70s, you don't want to take your sights off and store those and take a chance on losing them, because that's very valuable to the value of that weapon. So what you can do is you can take these little half-inch risers, and because it's got that little space to get it up, it'll give you enough room most of the time, unless you got something with a huge big optic on lens on the front, that it'll get you up high enough to where you can be over those iron sights. Like I said, most of the time it won't give you the opportunity to be able to use your iron sights as well. I don't have a set here today to show you because it's just something I don't use anymore, because I can't see well enough to see the sights. But they actually make these that it looks like there's a scope ring on the top and on the bottom, and the one on the bottom gives it like a full inch rise, so that you can actually use your iron sights or your scope. A lot of guys that hunt in areas where it's real high humidity, it rains a lot, northwestern United States and Alaska and stuff, they pretty much have to have that, because you can't ever take a chance in the places like that where there's large predators, that you have to use your scope in an emergency and some water's got on it or got in it and it's fogged up and you can't see through it. So at least that way you still have your irons that you can shoot. So that's what these mounts are for. Now this set of mounts is just actually a standard set of mounts that's set on the Picatinny rail. You can't use iron sights. If you use these, the barrel's more than likely going to have no rear sight at least, so that you'll have clearance when you put your scope on. This one actually was on a Remington 7400 that I have. The semi-automatics, I believe that's what it is, the 7400. I'm having a brain fart right now, I can't remember, but anyway, that the scope set literally right down on the barrel. When you look through the scope, you could see just a hint at the bottom of the scope window, a picture of a little bit of the rear sight. And so I had took these off and put a half-inch riser set like those ones we looked at just a second ago to get it above it, and it didn't affect anything. I just didn't like it. And it also makes it a little bit easier to have a cheek weld to the rifle. If that scope is up just a little bit, you'd be shocked how much a half-inch riser will make difference versus a set of these that has no rise, that sits right down on the gun. I'm sure there may have been a benefit for making them right down on the gun like that. I don't know. Maybe somebody knows. Y'all know. Let me know in the comments. But I don't know. I'm not a physicist either. I'm just some fat dude that likes to go out in the woods. But I don't see the purpose of the low riser mounts. Maybe there is. So like I said, if somebody out there knows, one of you guys know generally what the purpose of that is, let me know. Now, I wanted to also show you some stuff about most of the mounts you buy now are true Picatinny mounts. You can still buy Weaver mounts for like small caliber rifles, 22s, 22 Magnum, 17s. But almost all scope mounts now today that you buy are going to be Picatinny, or they're going to screw directly to the receiver. But you can get the little sections of Picatinny rail like this one, and if you notice, it's got a 1/4 bolt through it. And what that's for is, I take this and mount one of the little square bases that goes on a tripod, and if I'm wanting to use a scope as a spotting scope, then I can mount a scope to that little piece of Picatinny rail just on one ring, and put this on my little square base and put it in my tripod, and I can use it as something that can really draw in on a target. And after you get done using it, you can just take it right back off with a little piece of Picatinny rail, put your Picatinny rail up, keep it saved, and that way you've always got a mount you can use if that's what you're going to do. Alright, now the tools that you're going to use when dealing with these scope mounts. 95% of the time, I'm going to say it'll be an Allen wrench. Okay, now I feel like there's some tricky stuff. I think some of these manufacturers make like half-size Allen wrenches, that they're not metric and they're not standard. I've bought some that if you don't save that little Allen wrench that comes with that scope mount, you might struggle finding a set of Allen wrenches that'll fit it. But I have noticed something, and maybe it's just me, I don't know, but these little cheap Allen wrench sets, you can buy them most of the time at the dollar store or Walmart for like 99 cents, the little bitty cheap ones, or they come a lot of times if you buy tool sets that are in a little fold-up case, they'll have one of these that are standard and one of these are metric. Well, the weird thing about that is most of these scope mounts, these little cheap junky Allen wrenches will fit them pretty much as tight as the one that come with them from the factory. But then you take a set of these that are an actual decent set of Allen wrenches. These are Stanleys that are supposed to be spec, that a lot of times they won't work. And I've got these that are millimeter and are standard, and a lot of times they won't fit good in them, and you don't want to round out one of those holes, because if you do, then you're going to have a problem. You're going to have to drill it out, and you're going to have a lot of issues. So the little Allen wrenches that come with them, these little guys right here like that, keep those. Okay, so what you want to do is, to make sure that you don't lose the Allen wrench that actually fits that thing, the factory fit, is what I do is I make sure I've got the Allen wrench that fits these scope mounts, okay? So that I know that's one that fits it good and fits down inside the screw head. Then what I do is I take sandwich bags and I will drop both of my scope mounts down in there and my Allen wrench. So now if I ever go to use that set of scope mounts, I've got an Allen wrench in there. I know as soon as I go to take those out, that'll fit it. And then I put a piece of now this to me is an important thing too. I take a shop paper towel. Now shop paper towels are pretty tough, and they're super absorbent. I'll cut me out a square to fit in the bag, and I'll write on that paper towel what scope mount is in this, and I'll write on it the diameter of scope tube that it fits, and if it's a riser, how much of a riser it is. Of course, you can look at that and you know. And if it's standard Picatinny, or if there's a couple of different widths of Picatinny, we won't get into that because that's a rabbit hole. If we go down, we never will come out. But that's what I do. So when I've got an Allen wrench that fits that, I'll make sure I put it in the bag with those and seal them up, and then those get put in my gun safe, or they get put in a storage container that I keep that's got some of my gun stuff in it, stuff like that. Now, there is also specialized scope mounts that, or not necessarily scope mounts, I don't guess, but it's Picatinny rails that I am going to touch just a little bit here that are very specialized. They're not going to be a standard Picatinny rail that you can just bolt onto your rifle and use. They're specifically made for one gun, okay? And that's ones like this, okay? That's got that on there, and then you got the Picatinny on the bottom. Right. Now what these are for, if you watched my video of the Turkey Terminator 2000, these are scope mounts, or sorry, Picatinny mounts that go on a double barrel shotgun. I didn't know that even existed, but when I decided I wanted to do that video, and I thought I really want to do it, but I want to have my X-sight mounted to that shotgun so I could film the whole thing straight down the barrel of the gun. So I'm thinking, how in the world am I going to mount this to that double barrel shotgun? And I thought, you know, after 2 days of me thinking about how I was going to make something to do it, then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to look and see if there's something out on the market that you can do that with. So I googled it, and sure enough, 12 bucks off of Amazon, slides up the barrel, tighten up these 2 Phillips head screws, and there's 2 different Picatinny mounts, so you have them mounted right on your barrel just like that, and set your scope on top of it, and you're ready to go. Regular standard Picatinny on top. I did not know they were existed. Now I did discover something that I'm guessing it's because the shotgun barrel gets smaller as it goes down. The width of the 2 barrels even together, I think, must get smaller. And I had an issue with that when I would shoot it, it wanted to move forward. So what I had to do is I took no skid that no slip tape, the double-sided tape, and I put a strip inside of this before I mounted it, and then when I mounted it on there, not a problem, didn't move, and it was easy to take off. Nothing stuck to the barrel, didn't cause no issues. But that's just a different kind of a thing, you know. When you, that's like I said, that's why I didn't want to go down the Picatinny hole, because that's the kind of stuff. There is so much different stuff out there that you can get that's Picatinny. But this was what I will say: don't think that you may have to try to build something. If you're thinking about trying to mount something on one of your firearms that you need a special tool, special mount to do that, Google it first, because you might, like I did, find them, and you might find them cheap. You know, I figured if they was on the internet when I decided I was going to look it up, that they would be 60 or 70 bucks, because it'd be very specialized. But those are built out of real good aircraft grade aluminum. They're anodized real well. They look good and fit right on there. I mean, they've done exactly what I had to do. So now here's another Picatinny thing that I wanted to show you real quick. And that is like Picatinny rails on the bottom of a handgun. They work exactly the same way as the Picatinny rails does on your AR or on top of your deer rifle. You get a unit that you want to use on there. It sits on that Picatinny rail. You tighten it up, and if it's a laser, if it's a flashlight, whatever it's going to be, then you've got that right there. And then most of the time, what guys will have on a laser or a flashlight is they'll have a touch switch that'll either be back here at the back on the grip, or I've actually seen them that was actually on the trigger. I'm not so much that I like the one that was on the trigger, because I don't want my trigger on that if I'm not about to need to use the trigger. That's just too dangerous. With me, it'll be back here. I like to put it right back here on this side, so that when I grip the pistol, my thumb is what pushes the button. But I've seen people put them up there. Not me. I ain't gonna do it. Alright, now here's something else. One, I told you I wasn't gonna go down this Picatinny hole, but we're going anyway. Okay, what I did is I mounted this little light right here on this piece of Picatinny rail, just to show you something, not about the Picatinny rail, but about this scope mount, this mount that this light's attached to. Now, if you night hunt, if you use IR light, or just a flashlight, you're going to have that light. It's still going to have to line up with your line of sight on your gun, because it's not going to do you any good if you're looking down your scope and you're looking over here, but your light's shining over there. It's not going to help you any. So what you have to do is you have to have the ability to sort of look down your scope and look at your line of sight and adjust that light so that when it's at its max beam, that it's pointed right in the middle of where your line of sight is. And that's hard to do if you ain't got a specialized mount. You can do it. You have to shim the mount. You have to loosen the mount up and then shim the light that you're going to have in it to tighten down so it'll be kind of angled. And a lot of times you get ones that they won't stay positioned because they don't stay equally tensioned all the way around them, stuff like that. So what you need to do is you actually need to get an adjustable mount. And there's a lot of them on the market. A lot of them adjust different ways. Some of them actually, the mount itself has little set screws, and you adjust it and it'll adjust it up and down and side to side like you would adjust sights on a scope or on your rifle. But this one, if you pay attention, I'm holding the Picatinny rail, and you see how that moves? It moves all around. Well, you line that up and point it at wherever you need it to line up with your line of sight on your rifle. And when you tighten up these screws on top of the cap right here, then it cinches down, that ring cinches down on the tube of the light that you got on there, and it'll stay where you set it. So then after that, whenever you turn the light on and you look down your scope, the light's always going to be right in the middle of your line of sight, and you don't have to worry about an animal being in the position where you want to shoot at it and you can't see it because your light's not pointed at it. Now, there's actually a little bit heftier ones. This is my Predator Tactics light that I have, the Coyote Reaper. This thing, by the way, if you need an IR light, watch my video on Coyote Reaper IR light. This thing is amazing. I'm talking about 800-900 yards, man. You can light stuff up with this. But they come with a really good mount that is really solid. It's heavy built, and it's got, I like it because it has the cap screws are on both sides. You know, there's two over here and two over here, instead of just having the two that cinch down like a clamp. And it's got, you can see it's got all kinds of movement. You can go side to side with it, you can go up and down with it. And like I say, this just goes under your barrel or on the side of your barrel, so that when you look down your line of sight on your scope, then you're going to be able to see, have this centered right on where you're looking. So you would draw the light down, focus it all the way down, and then look down your line of sight, and it's just like lining up the scope. You want to line the light up to where you're as close as you can to being in the center. But that mount comes with this light when you buy them with the Predator Tactics Coyote Reaper. That adjustable mount comes with it, and it's pretty neat. Like I said, if you haven't seen that video of Predator Tactics Coyote Reaper, look it up. It's an awesome video. You'll learn a lot. That's money well spent if you got an IR scope. I mean, really, really, really good. So now I wanted to show you one other thing. This is my ATN X-Sight Pro. I wanted to show you the mounts that I have on it, and these are a pretty nice set of mounts. Like I said, I was talking about the mounts. I'm going to get a set of the Zero Delta. They are just, they're amazing. They work. The ones I've got here work pretty good, but the Zero Delta, yeah, it's really, really, really nice. Well, the ones that I've got here, as you can see, is kind of a wonky looking little base there. Well, when you want to take your rifle off, you just flip these open, and that opens up that Picatinny. You can take your rifle off, and as long as when you put it back, or take your scope off, and then when you put it back on, as long as you put it in the same numbers on your Picatinny rail, then just close those up like that, and you're right back to zero. Now, with this one, it'll stay 1 MOA at 100 yards on zero if you take it off, and as long as you put it back in the same number. They're not Zero Delta. They're not right on. But now Zero Delta gets you back to, I mean, like 1/4 inch groups at 100 yards. It'll stay right in there as long as you put it back in the same hole. But with this, it's sufficient, but it's not as good as Zero Delta. What I like about Zero Delta is they have two different styles. They have a style that's like this, that attaches to the scope and stays on the scope, and then the mount stays on the rifle, and you just disconnect the scope by loosening up thumb bars. Or they actually have one that's just a block that goes on your rifle, and then you have a Picatinny rail on the bottom of your thermal or the bottom of your IR that you'll mount it back to when you go to put it back on. But long story short, as long as you keep it in the same number, in the same spot on your Picatinny, when you take it off and put it back on, you're going to stay in zero, and that's the name of the game. But guys, I just wanted to just talk briefly about some stuff like that, and how I use them and how I store them, and it's a unit that's a big, huge part. Maybe as important as the ammo you use is your scope mounts, because if you've got scope mounts that reliably won't stay put, they won't stay tight, they're putting too much pressure on your scope tube. Now, another thing I didn't mention that we'll get into in another video down the road is a lot of these scope mounts that you buy, they need to be lapped. They may be just slightly out of center with each other, and that way, so when you mount your scope, that there's no weird pressures or anything pulling on the scope tube. Everything's just relaxed, straight looking. But we'll get into that at another time. I don't want to make this video too long, but I just wanted to show you the different kinds, some of the different kinds of mounts that are out there and how they work and the importance of what you need to do with it. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Got a lot more coming down the road. Hey y'all, appreciate you watching this video. Hope to see you in the next one. This is Fat Man. I'm gone.